Good evening. So, some folks may be wondering why the thumbnail might say subs for surfs. Well, in an interesting turn of events, when I say that, I haven't heard about it previously before today. However, I did hear about it today, and I do believe that timing is everything. And so, if you didn't know, Biden did a three-way, virtual conference with the president or whatever of Australia. I don't know what they call what his title is. I apologize. And Boris Johnson, and so they announced that both the United States and the UK are going to help Australia obtain nuclear powered. Now I'm saying nuclear powered, not nuclear armed. They claim they'll be conventionally armed, but they will be nuclear powered submarines. I find this interesting. Right at the same time that Australia is undoubtedly putting restrictions on its citizens that are so Orwellian in nature. I'm having a hard time. I'm really having a hard time with this. Is this a good job reward or something? That's almost what it seems like. Now, shortly before the show, another article came my way from RT, and apparently France is kind of upset about this whole ordeal because they had other plans on some diesel submarines, and I guess that fell through. Now, the article states, and I'll show the articles here in a moment, that apparently France really wasn't coming through on their, everything, their delivery schedules. The budgets kept going up, the costs kept going up. So there were a number of factors that are claimed by Australia that led to the dissolving of the agreement between Australia and France. So, and that may be very possible. But I just find it really interesting that we're doing this. Now, when I say that, don't misunderstand. I get the strategic reasons and all of that. I understand those parts of it. But it just seems to come at a very interesting time. And of all the countries, we're going to give nuclear powered subs to the one that is being undoubtedly the most restrictive. In fact, I don't know that China was doing the things that Australia appears to be doing. That's kind of shocking. But I don't know. It just seemed odd. Let me bring up the articles here. Let me have a sip of coffee. Bring you up to the web browser here. And this is the first article. I also got an interesting article about the U.S. Capitol Police that I'm going to talk about. Let's see. Biden says U.S. and U.K. to help Australia build conventionally armed nuclear submarines. And not that long of a read. U.S. and U.K. and Australia have announced a new military initiative dedicated to free and open Indo-Pacific. The The first step of the alliance that appears aimed against China is to provide Canberra with nuclear submarines. British Prime Minister Boris Johnson and his Australian counterpart Scott Morrison joined U.S. President Joe Biden in a virtual three-way announcement of what Biden called the new phase of trilateral security cooperation between the old allies on Wednesday. The future of the three countries and even the world depends on free and open Indo-Pacific enduring and flourishing in the decades ahead, Biden said. And I'm having a hard time really believing that he was able to get that out. Adding that AUKUS would be about making sure each nation has most modern capabilities we need. Goes on to say the first concrete step in expanding and maintaining aging military capabilities and critical technologies would be providing Australia with nuclear-powered and conventionally armed submarines, Biden said. Only a handful of countries possess nuclear-powered submarines, and it's a momentous decision for any nation to acquire this formidable capability, said Johnson. But Australia is one of our oldest friends, a kindred nation, and a fellow democracy, and a natural partner in this enterprise. Well, actually what it is Australia does absolutely everything Britain tells it to. I mean, it is like the lapdog of Britain. Nuclear submarines are currently operated by only 6 countries: China, France, and India, or China, France, India, Russia, and the U.S. and the UK, who also possess atomic weapons. And when the AUKUS project delivers results, it would make Australia the first country in the world with nuclear-powered subs, but not weapons. And I'm not, you know what I mean? I'm not too foolish to think that they couldn't be swapped. Let's see. Biden said the project would begin with an 18-month consultation period between the militaries of the three countries and involve the International Atomic Energy Agency to ensure full compliance with their obligations under the 1970 Treaty of the Non-Proliferation of Nuclear Weapons. While the U.S. President did not mention China, all the talk about the Indo-Pacific made it clear who the new and improved alliance was aimed against. The UK recently joined the US in sending warships on freedom of navigation operations in South China Sea, a vital maritime trade route where Beijing has claimed a series of islands and reefs. Asked to comment on the announcement, Chinese embassy spokesman Lu Pinyu said countries should not build exclusionary blocks targeting or harming the interests of third parties. In particular, they should shake off their Cold War mentality and ideological prejudice. Washington actually renamed its Pacific Command into Indo-Pacific in 2018 in a bid to court India's cooperation in containing China. Biden also mentioned France, a NATO ally, as having a substantial presence in the region. The introduction video preceding the announcement touted AUKUS as an alliance of maritime democracies united by their democracy, resilience, innovations, and diversity in working for the good of the world. Well, you know, the good of the world. And the children. You always got to throw the children in there. So, I find it very interesting on many levels that we're doing this. Now, again, strategically, I get it. It does. It makes sense. It makes total sense strategically. And like I said, you know, just because they're conventionally armed doesn't mean that those armaments can't be swapped out in short order. And, hey, who's to know, right? Who's to know if one or two of them puppies aren't nuclear armed? You know, I mean, come on. So once again, we essentially are trying to build up, nuclear capability, and I firmly believe it's nuclear capability in the long run. And here's the thing. I'm in the boat that I'm good with a strong defense. I'm really good with a strong defense. We let our defense shield go for way too long. So I can't knock anything that would help us further our ability to be a deterrent. Because let's not make a mistake, there is a high level of deterrence by being the badass on the block. So, and I don't think necessarily that we are at this particular moment in history, but, I don't think China wants to wipe us off the face of the earth. I don't think Russia wants to wipe us off the face of the earth. Now, China might be a little more inclined to, I think, than Russia, but I don't think China really wants an all-out like that. I'm not saying that I don't think China wants conflict, because I don't know, it kind of seems like they might. But I don't think they want that conflict. And so, again, a deterrent from that is a very good thing, because we don't want that. We don't want war. We don't want war at all, but we especially don't want that. So, again, I get that. I mentioned about France. And they've got an article here, too, that I'll go over so you understand what's going on with that. It's a very interesting situation. And it's something that I would keep in the back of my mind. I would, on all parts of it here, including the French part. Because who knows? France might cut a deal with somebody else. I mean, who knows? It's a crazy, crazy world right now. And I think there's going to be a little bit of a shuffling of alliances. I think there's been a whole lot of changes that have gone on with attitudes between different nations, especially in the past month. But even beyond that, there's been a definite change. So let's see. This is headline: France regrets AUKUS nuclear submarine deal that scuttled its multi-billion-dollar contract of the century with Australia. And it says a new plan to equip Australia with nuclear-powered submarines using U.S. and U.K. technology may be aimed to counter China, but steps on the toes of NATO ally France, which lost a massive shipbuilding contract with Canberra. U.S. President Joe Biden, Australian Prime Minister Scott Morrison, and the British counterpart Boris Johnson announced the AUKUS initiative in a three-way virtual event on Wednesday. It is supposed to start 18-month consultations to eventually provide Australia with nuclear-powered but conventionally armed submarines, making it the first non-atomic nation with such weapons. French shipbuilder Naval Group reportedly expressed disappointment at the announcement, as it meant Canberra was abandoning their contract for a dozen diesel-electric submarines. The Australian press has reported the value of that contract at 90 billion Aus, that's 56 billion euros, or 66 billion in U.S. dollars. I'll take a couple of that. The Naval Group contract was personally backed by French President Emmanuel Macron, who promised full and complete commitment to it as recently as June, according to AFP, even as Australia was already in talks with London and Washington, apparently. Canberra's regrettable decision was contrary to the letter and the spirit of the cooperation which prevailed between France and Australia, French Foreign Minister Jean-Yves Le Drian, I don't know how to say that, and Armed Forces Minister Florence Parly said in a joint response to the AUKUS announcement. Part of the problem with the naval group deal is that the Australian government was insisting on doing the manufacturing and sourcing of the components locally, according to Reuters. At least one Australian MP has already wondered whether Canberra will make the same demands in the AUKUS deal or simply buy off-the-shelf designs from Washington and London. Australian Defence Minister Peter Dutton and Foreign Minister Maurice Payne are already in Washington, while PM Scott Morrison is expected to arrive later this month. The Royal Australian Navy currently operates 6 Collins-class submarines based off of a Swedish design and built between 1990 and 2003 in Port River near Adelaide. Canberra had made a deal with Naval Group in 2016 for a dozen new vessels, but the contract has since broken down over a series of disagreements over spiraling costs, design changes, schedule slippage, and local industry involvement, according to the Australian outlet Financial Review. After one European think tank fellow called the cancellation a knife in the back to Paris on a very important deal for France as it looked to solidify its own complementary role in the Indo-Pacific, as Australian journalists in Berlin disagreed. Australia was long unhappy with the cost blowouts and missed deadlines of the French program, argued Trent Murray. In the eyes of Canberra, Naval Group simply didn't deliver what it was being paid for. The AUKUS arrangement has both financial and political implications for France. Numerous observers have pointed out the French government has 62% stake in Naval Group, while the remaining third held by Thales, itself partly state-owned. Losing the contract to the U.S. and U.K. would also be a major blow for Macron and could prompt a rethinking in France about strategic alliances with the Anglosphere, said a Reuters correspondent in Paris. The statement by Le Drian and Parley appears to bear this out, as they pointed to the regrettable decision by Australia reinforces the need to raise the issue of European strategic autonomy as only a credible way to defend our interests and our values in the world. So I wanted to make sure to get all that in there because it really kind of shows that things are shifting, and it's important to keep an eye on those shifts because it's going to make for a whole different way this is going to play out. You have to understand different countries, and I do believe that there's going to be a global conflict, and different countries having alliances with one another. They're essentially going to be bases for the alliance countries. So say for instance France decides to go and side up with Russia and China, for instance. Well, now that gives Russia and China a place where they can stop off at. You see what I'm saying? Pit stop. So again, I think this is something to certainly keep a close eye on. Pardon me. I sure hope that we don't wind up in a nuclear exchange with one of these countries. But I'll tell you what, I understand the deterrent part of it, but at some point, somebody's inevitably gonna launch, and that sucks. The only thing that we can hope is that it's limited, very limited engagement. That's the only thing that we can hope for. It's frustrating because I'm sitting here, I'm talking about this when, the best part of the day, I got to watch 4 civilians go into space live. And that was cool. And they're going to spend, I guess, 3 days in orbit. And that is really cool. And I did that just right before the show. SpaceX had a flight. I'll be covering the headline later. And I'm all for that stuff. Absolutely. I don't know so much how much I like it as in a tourism kind of thing, but absolutely, if you could, afford to get a ride into space, hell yeah, absolutely, that would be awesome. I don't know that I could do it, but I sure in the hell wouldn't want to tell somebody else no. That is an awful cool thing. So, and again, I wish we could have more stuff like that to be talking about than all this other crap. But unfortunately, we're not going to get bit by the 4 people that, went into space, but we certainly are going to get bit by these governments, one way or another. I'll tell you, and I don't know if I covered it yesterday, if I covered any of them or not. Yeah, yesterday or day before about North Korea shooting off a ballistic missile. Well, then they shot off 2 more, and apparently they tested some kind of a rail missile system that they've got. So that's the other thing. North Korea is certainly starting to stick its head back up again. And South Korea also tested a missile. So it would appear that they're kind of getting ready to go at one another. It looks like it's a possibility. Again, I think you're going to see alliances switch up. And I think you're going to see things get a little crazy. I really do. I think there's a lot of stuff that's just going to go downhill quick at the same time. I think the economy, and I know it's already bad. I know the inflation is horrible in some places. It's going to be atrocious from my understanding here soon, especially when it comes to food. I don't know. And that's, if you're talking about the food subject, that's with the current situation. If there's further economic turmoil, which you can pretty well guarantee that, and if there is some type of conflict on top of that, it's going to be rough. I cannot urge people enough to try to get some food put back. Do what you can to get ready. If you haven't done so, please start. If you have been doing so, keep doing it. Keep looking at what you have and keep thinking, okay, what if I had none of this? What if I had and when I say that, no electricity, no internet, no running water, no gas, nothing like that. No utilities of any kind. What do I need? And then make sure you have backups. So, really go through and take a good, long, hard look at your preps and try to find those holes. Because there's no do-overs in this. If lights would go out, we lose internet, lights, everything indefinitely. There's no do-overs if you fail. And when I say fail, I mean on a lethal level. There's no do-over. So make sure you get it as close to right as you can the first time, because it's the only time. Maybe the only time. Can't say that for sure, but it could very well be the only time. It's just not looking good. It's really not. Of course, the situation in the U.S., It's absolutely crazy. Um, sure you've heard about the goings on with General Milley. Who couldn't have heard about that? That is just more and more. My mind is blown by that whole thing. That's going to be in the headlines. Lots of pushback, it would seem, on mandatory vaccinations from the way it appears. All kinds of stuff happening right here domestically, all at the same time. We talked last night about National Guard and how, and at this point in Massachusetts, they're going to be driving buses, and they could wind up near us here in Granite City, Illinois. Driving buses there, and who knows where else. A lot of crazy situations. Labor shortage was bad enough. Now with the mandates, it's going to get worse, and I think we all know that. Again, that's going to be driving prices up. That's going to be driving availability down. So keep all this stuff in mind and do what you can now. I try to stay ahead of things. It's like lighters. Takes forever to get them, but I ordered them from Amazon. There 12, I guess, here in this. And yeah. I ordered 2 packs of lighters. So it's like, I think $14 delivered to my door, right? So just anything like that, make sure you're on it. And those are luxury lighters, by the way. That's not my lighter per se is in my pocket. And don't get me wrong, I got a Bic on the desk there, but my SHTF lighter's in my pocket, right there. The Ameritac. It's you can go to countycom.com and get them. It's Ameritac. It's like a fluid lighter, like a Zippo, essentially. But it screws. It's got an O-ring, so it's airtight, and a great little high-quality made lighter. And again, countycom.com is where I got it. And then the other thing is a tank of fuel, extra tank of fuel. So I've got that, and then if things get beyond that, well, then right here on my key ring, I've got a ferro rod, and I can either use the scraper that I've got on my key ring with the ferro rod, or I'd hate to do it, but I could use that knife, or the neck knife, or the knife on the Leatherman. So I'm covered for fire. I'm covered for cutting. I just got to get my keys back on me. That's what preparedness is, right? So just go through, find those holes, and try to patch them up the best you can. Real quick, I want to talk about another thing before we get into headlines here. Oh, man. Let me see what that was. A lot of headlines today. And boy, are they really laying on the fear. You know what I'm saying? We watched TV today and local news, and you want to talk about laying it on thick, and you want to talk about the stories, and let's not mince words, the stories that they are exploiting. It's insane what they're trying to do. In the UK now, they're working on making it to where the tweens, I guess 12 through 17 or whatever, can get the thing at school. And I know there's been talk about it here in the U.S., but I think they're getting ready to put it through, or they did put it through, something like that. They were talking about to where a 12 to 17-year-old in school can make the decision on their own without the parents' knowledge or agreement or anything. So it's messed up, and I can guarantee you that that'll come here. It's absolutely messed up. And I honestly believe that there is more to this story right here. A U.S. Capitol Police asked Pentagon for National Guard troops to help cope with protests against mistreatment of January 6 rioters. And I have to say this. I heard it again today. I heard it by Jen Psaki. And I didn't watch all of the press conference today, but I did watch a little bit of it. And she was making reference to what happened January 6th and the whole insurrectionist thing. And I'm still asking, can anybody name one of all of those defendants? Can anybody name one of them that has been actually charged with insurrection? Because to my knowledge, to this date, there's still not been one charged with insurrection. So how in the hell was it an insurrection if nobody's been charged with it? I'm at a loss here. I'm at a loss. So I don't know, this whole way they're dealing with all this. Let's look at the story here. I think it's got more to do, more than just the protest of the mistreatment of the rioters. At least they're calling them rioters here. Hey, I'll give it that for some of the people, but it seemed to be a pretty small portion of the people. It seemed like the majority of the people were just kind of walking through respectably like it was a tour. It seemed like the majority. But yeah, you did have that group of people that were absolutely going above and beyond that. So, that is what it is. I think it's insane that they charged all the people that just walked through like they did. I mean, that's insane. Anyway, article says apparently not content with putting up with unscalable fence. Let's see. To protect the U.S. Capitol, police have asked the Pentagon to provide National Guard troops as supporters of former President Donald Trump return to Washington for a rally. Pentagon spokesman John Kirby confirmed the request on Wednesday, acknowledging that it was made in connection with a protest scheduled for Saturday over the alleged mistreatment of suspects in January's Capitol riot. He said the Capitol Police Department is seeking a manpower support for the rally and that the request is being processed. The CPD later issued a statement confirming that it asked the Department of Defense to provide National Guard troops to deploy should the need arise on Saturday. About 26,000 National Guard troops were brought to Washington following the riot, but many were kept around the Capitol for months to ensure tight security during and after President Joe Biden's inauguration. The fence ringing the Capitol was finally taken down in July, 6 months after the riot, but Capitol Police Chief Thomas Manger told reporters on Monday that it will be going back up for Saturday's Justice for J6 protest. An overwhelming security presence may help support the narrative that Trump has incited violent and racist insurrectionists who are a paramount threat to American democracy. U.S. House Speaker Nancy Pelosi said Wednesday that police had made unprecedented preparations to address another attempt to defile our national purpose. Another attempt? A protest? Let's see. It's not clear how the protesters might threaten the national purpose. Only about 700 people are expected to attend Saturday's event, according to a Department of Homeland Security estimate, and organizers have asked protesters not to wear clothing or carry signs supporting either Trump or Biden. The rally is in protest against how the more than 600 people arrested in connection with the Capitol riot have been treated. At least 6 Republican members of the Congress held a press conference on July 27th to decry the fact that hundreds of defendants have remained jailed for months while awaiting trial. These are political prisoners who are now being persecuted and bearing the pain of unjust suffering, Representative Paul Gosar said. Some of the detainees have reportedly suffered abuse at the hands of guards or other inmates. Gosar said some suspects have been held in solitary confinement for up to 23 hours a day. So, and I've certainly heard that there's been mistreatment of prisoners, and I know that such things go on because that absolutely was going on with the individuals that were involved with Bundy Ranch and Meyer Wildlife Refuge. So I have no reason to think for a second that it's not happening now. But I think what you're going to find, and I could be wrong on this, I think what you're going to find is those fences that go up, nothing's going to happen, right? But then they'll have some report or some threat that they will claim they need to keep them up. And I have a feeling that the true purpose is because there's a lot more coming down the pike at us when it comes to restrictions and stuff like that involving COVID and the vaccines. So I kind of think that this whole putting it up for this protest thing might actually be, in a sense, kind of a front for a bigger purpose. We'll see. Again, it is unprecedented what is going on in this nation right now. This stuff with General Milley, I don't even know how to touch that. I mean, how do you even, and then you've got individuals. Oh, yeah, Psaki today. I caught this too. She was saying that it was about the context, right? Essentially, it was about the context of the situation. In other words, what she was trying to say is that particular situation deemed that type of a response. Now, I'm a fair person, and I don't support man. I support the Father. So I'm going to do my best when I look at situation. I'm not going to jump on one train or the other. I'm going to take a good, honest look at it. And one of the claims was that there was a period of time there, right there at the end of his presidency, in which General Milley claims that he was concerned about the state of mind of Donald Trump. Now, I am going to say myself that, and I wasn't concerned about the state of his mind so much. I was curious why the hell he was staying out of public like he was, because there was a period of time before the end of his term to where he just kind of locked himself away. He didn't make any public appearances or speak anything. But that doesn't mean that he wasn't in a good frame of mind whatsoever. I have no idea. I'm sure there was a whole lot of stuff going on. A whole lot of stuff. So yeah, I raised the question right here on this show, because again, I think it's responsibility for people to ask questions. And I remember asking the question, is he gonna launch for China or Iran? I was thinking a high chance Iran, to be honest, more so than China. But I don't know, no matter what, You don't contact the enemy, right? I'm sorry I'm laughing, but it's that silly. It is really that silly. And Jen Psaki and these sacks in the administration expect us to accept that. We're supposed to trade treason, an act of treason, for the context that they felt. Well, I'm kind of done with their context. You know? I mean, they act like what happened on January 6th was the darkest moment in the history of this. In fact, that's one of the things she said. One of the darkest times in American history. My ass. I mean, come on. Really? The darkest moment? The darkest moment was when an officer employed by the federal government killed a young woman. That was the darkest moment of that day. How come Ashley Babbitt can't get mentioned by these people? That was the darkest moment of the whole day. And we really can't talk about that because they were protecting our fearless leaders. I'm not buying it. I'm not buying it. But they're making it sound on the same level with 9/11 or Pearl Harbor. Not even remotely. Not even remotely. It's like Woodstock got out of hand, essentially. I mean, come on. Nobody. I think they did catch one or a couple of people or something that was armed or something. But I mean, it wasn't an armed event. People weren't really trying to take over the government. That's silly. That's absolutely silly. Oh yeah, we're going to go take over the government. We're not going to take guns in, though, because it's illegal. Are you kidding me? They didn't take guns in because it wasn't their intent. Crazy. Anyway, I'll get off my soapbox about January 6th. I don't talk about it very often. I don't know what to say. I mean, the way it's being represented, what happened, it's all different. Well, that's pretty much describes anything, honestly. But how do you even really, how do you even address that? Seriously. I mean, they truly do not want us to be able to address our grievances in this country. And at this rate, it looks like they don't want us to be able to address them in any way whatsoever. Anyway. Now, I'm not too good with that. It's insane where this country has gone in the last 30 years. Has been a nightmare. Alrighty, let me do some headlines and get out of here. Enjoying a pretty cool night tonight. Uh-oh, Raggy. And I figured it wouldn't, I closed out the Twitter page. Let me get scrolled back down. Almost there. There we go. Do what? On what? Let's see. Okay. We have a sip of coffee here and maybe a couple of vapes. Not in a big hurry or nothing. Oh. I'm not super tired like I have been. That's a good thing, I reckon. Oh, fun times. I mean, I was reading the headlines. Oh, yeah, and that's the other thing, too. This whole Governor Newsom thing. Where do you go with that? How do... I don't get how these votes are done, but it's not accurate. I mean... It's just ridiculous. And what recourse do we have? I mean, we really truly have no actual real recourse in this country anymore. Hang on, had another headline pop up. I'll go ahead and get it out now. And that way it'll pop up when we get up to the top. Okay. Chief prosecutor in Haiti sacked after he tried to charge PM for alleged role in president's murder. California Governor Newsom claims victory against cynicism and bigotry after taking huge lead in recall vote. And from my understanding, that's a miracle. North Korea fires 2 unidentified projectiles days after testing long-range cruise missiles, says reports. Nord Stream 2 in limbo as Germany prepares to decide on key license. China sets out to rein in country's bloated EV industry. I guess they have like way too many different manufacturers of electric vehicles. And that's very likely because there is a lot of options over there when it comes to that. And, you know, a lot of it's just little bitty companies. I mean, they're not big companies, but they have a lot of different choices of stuff like that over there. It's not surprising at all. I actually know somebody that lives over there that has been playing around with his own electric vehicles that he's designed. Now, I do believe that he's sold some, but it's not like he's done production or anything like that. So, let's see. Gas price in Europe smashes historic high as EU debates limiting Russian imports. Russia demands answers from U.S. ambassador over election interference as Moscow says it has proof of serious sabotage efforts. UK inflation sees highest increase on record after dramatic spike caused by heavily discounted eat-out incentive scheme. South Korea hails successful test of submarine-launched ballistic missile after 2 North Korean projectiles land off of Japan. No jab, no football. Buffalo Bills close doors to unvaccinated fans as COVID restrictions storm brews. Russia on track to reap another bumper grain harvest. U.S. city mayor threatens school board over child porn writing prompt book that included tasks to describe sexual experiences. And I'm not going to read them here, but it's mind-blowing. And I know that defendants of this stuff would say that, oh, well, it was a college prep course. It's not like we were teaching second graders this. Man, I'm telling you, the actual content, no, that's not good at all. You know, if you can't wait until actual college for that, hey, once they're a legal adult and they're in college, hey, that's that, whatever. You know, then they have to choose for themselves what to answer, what not to answer, what to reveal, whatever you know. But when they're still in high school, I don't care if it's a college prep course or not. You don't ask them to describe in detail different types of sexual experiences or situations. No, absolutely not. And again, I'm not going to get into any of the content in particular because it's disgusting. Unbelievable. But yeah, there was a bunch of cheers. The mayor of the town went into, I guess, a board meeting and told them flat out, you know, either you all resign or we're gonna arrest you. So I mean, it was crazy, and I mean the whole place started cheering. Let's see, Russia running out of oil? Question mark. Profitable reserves may last only another 20 years, Moscow says, citing improved tech as only solution. Putin's unveiling of monument to Alexander Nevsky on NATO frontiers shows how Russia believes real threat comes from the West, not the East. Well, yeah. Why would they think that the threat comes from the East? Early launch of Nord Stream 2 could balance EU gas market and stop price surge, says the Kremlin. EU red tape prevents Russia from boosting NS2 gas supplies to Europe, says Lavrov. Climate activists block M25 London orbital for second time in 3 days. Russia's elections are an all-important test for Putin's party, but can opposition activists in the sunny south beat voter apathy? PM Johnson to reshuffle cabinet, Education Secretary Williamson out, Foreign Secretary Raab reportedly set to get the axe, and he did. Russian envoys veto extension of UN's peace-building mission in Libya at crunch Security Council vote, diplomatic sources say. Iran's atomic energy chief vows to boost nuclear science despite efforts of enemies to curb Tehran's advancement. Dominic Raab removed as Foreign Secretary, confirmed as Justice Secretary, Lord Chancellor, and Deputy Prime Minister, says media. Ukraine must stop begging for money from the West because countries with great history should have dignity, says Russia's Lavrov. I thought that was funny. True. It's absolutely true. Just another distraction. Some unconvinced by Boris Johnson's cabinet reshuffle following benefits cut. Biden to launch nuclear tech working group alongside UK and Australia in apparent bid to push back against China, says reports. And we talked about that. Russian gas delivery via Nord Stream 2 pipeline won't start in October, says Gazprom. 91% of China's youth aged 12 to 17 are fully vaccinated against COVID, says state media. A Russian Soyuz rocket launches 34 satellites into orbit as part of mission to expand internet coverage throughout the globe. Western media claimed Sochi would be post-Olympic ghost town. Now claimed that it would be. Russian city's mayor reveals population has doubled in a decade. Hackers claim to have stolen trove of data from Epic, a web host for multiple right-wing platforms. ICC backs probe into the Philippines' war on drugs despite Manila warning foreigners to stay out of it. Taliban discovers cache of Soviet-made ballistic missiles in Panjshir Valley. How's that? I mean, come on. Now they've got ballistic missiles. Really? What's next? Let's see. I blame Larry Nassar, and I blame an entire system. Biles breaks down as she slams FBI investigation into pedophile doctor. Top U.S. General Milley doubles down on call to Chinese counterpart about rogue POTUS Trump, says it went through proper channels. What, Pelosi? Trump slates corrupt Facebook for secret system that exempted VIP users from content moderator rules and sanctions. A world record COVID penalty, top Aussies jockey facing $730,000 losses over illegal lockdown party, a lawyer claims. Holy cow. Minnesota Supreme Court overturns murder conviction of ex-cop who killed Justine Damond. Pope Francis calls for compassion and not condemnation for Biden and other abortion-supporting Catholic politicians. Can we say lukewarm? Let's get on with the job. Johnson finalizes UK cabinet shuffle after weeks of speculation. London's High Court vows to ensure U.S. sexual assault case papers are served on Prince Andrew. So now, supposedly, London is going to try to serve them themselves. So we'll see. Afghan female youth footballers flee Taliban by crossing border to Pakistan. After outrage, comment on shooting Republicans disavowed by Free Press, a group petitioning FCC over structurally racist media. Hundreds of police respond to possible threat at synagogue in Hagen, Germany, as Jews mark Yom Kippur. Biden says U.S. and U.K. to help Australia build conventionally armed nuclear submarines under new partnership. We talked about that. North Korea says it successfully tested railway-borne missile in latest launch, says state media. We talked about that. Twitter locks out Nicki Minaj after Trinidad government denies vaccine links to swollen testicles live on TV. So, French Special Forces neutralize terrorist leader of Islamic State's Greater Sahara cell, Macron says. Los Angeles County to demand proof of vaccination at indoor bars, jab certificate, or negative COVID test at large outdoor events. SpaceX launches Inspiration 4 from Florida as part of historic all-civilian space mission. Missouri businesses and protesters slam Biden's vaccine mandate. We talked about that. And FDA not yet sold on COVID-19 booster jabs as Pfizer and Moderna share data showing the vaccines lose efficacy over time. And that would be it. That would be the headlines. Lots going on. Whole lots going on. I'll tell you, do your best to kind of keep an eye on it, but keep getting ready. Don't lose that focus of getting ready. Because like I said, this ride's going to start moving pretty quick, and it's going to get awful bumpy. And I don't know when it's going to let up from there, because once a few of these key things start happening, it's just going to go downhill, and we are going to be in turmoil for a period of time. And I have no idea when we. I mean, I think you're looking at events that make, the previous world wars and the Great Depression all pale in comparison. And I'm not saying that to try to fearmonger or anything else. I'm just saying that to try to be realistic, because we are certainly looking at global conflict. We are certainly looking at economic woes like this planet has never seen. This isn't just about the U.S. We're in for a time. And the only one that you can 100% rely on is you. And the Father, of course. But when it comes to these physical things that we have to gather, these different types of manners in which we have to get prepared and ready, that's on you. That's on you. So anyway, keep at it. No matter how big, no matter how little, don't get discouraged. Make sure that you, at the same time, make sure that you continue with your life. Don't not do things because of what's going on. In other words, for instance, if you happen to be a business owner, don't hold back from expanding or doing this or that. Absolutely not. Absolutely not. I wouldn't put too many long-term things in the plans, but absolutely grow where you can. But make sure you're getting prepped, because I don't know how long any of that's really going to be even an important part of our lives. I've been doing more web design type of stuff. If we lose power, lose internet, guess what? Not going to be doing that. So it is what it is. But anyway, I'm going to get out of here, and God willing, we'll be back tomorrow, and we'll do it again, and we'll close up another week, and I look forward to seeing you. So as always, God bless you. We love you. Be one with your spirit, and shalom.